Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We have not yet started the official portion. We're just going to let a few stragglers join. We've got Christina from People Rain monitoring the waiting room, and we'll give the others 30 seconds or so, and then we will have some fun. Thank you for being right on time, everyone. This will be recorded. We'll be sharing it on our YouTube channel and other social properties. As part of the preamble, we will go through the panelist discussion and then leave room at the end for Q&A. If you have a question, just to keep the conversation flowing, probably best if you put it in the Q&A panel. But if you want to come off mute toward the end, if you have a question, that's fine too. Um, and gosh, that's all the preamble I have for you. The only thing that's left is starting the event and having some fun. So I'll count us down and then we will get started. Okay, we'll call this critical mass. Let's do it. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuned in from. I'm Dan Turchin, the CEO of People Rain, and so excited to have you here for today's important conversation. Welcome to AI in the Public Sector. This is a discussion with a couple visionaries as part of an ongoing series that we have at People Rain called Lessons for Leaders. PeopleRain, as I hope you know, is the AI platform that automates the delivery of IT and HR employee service. We're positively impacting how the next billion employees experience work. We're delivering 4 to 6 hours of productive time back per week per employee by automating thousands of common work tasks, integrated with over 100 common enterprise systems. But we couldn't do it without the support that we have from visionary leaders like the ones you're going to meet today. Every industry is reimagining work and retooling to prepare for both the present and, of course, the future. Public sector technology leaders are tasked with modernizing responsibly by introducing innovation to deliver better citizen services. But they have this added challenge. They also need to be compliant with regulations, oversight boards, security protocols, and sensitive data storage policies. I have been inspired by how today's panelists are navigating these challenges, and I was really excited to have them share their stories and some of what is working for them with you. They're on the front lines balancing that dual mandate and delivering results in the process. Before introducing you to the panelists, I'm going to set the stage just by talking about some of what we're seeing in terms of AI usage in the public sector, a few success stories, a few common patterns, and then we'll jump into the discussion. So, three stories that I think should do a good job of setting the stage for today's discussion. Left to right, three different geographies, at least my left to right. In France, starting last year, the government rolled out a tax assistance program to help every French citizen get common questions answered to make sure that that arcane tax code, it's in France as well as in the United States. It exists everywhere. Just make it easier for citizens to navigate the process of filing taxes. This middle one, success story from the United States, one that's uh, near and dear to my heart. This is from a great People Rain customer, the New York City Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Um, Not only do they keep the trains running on time, but they manage all of the transit systems that allow people to get in and out of New York City metropolitan areas. And they started with an application from PeopleRain called Classify, and then another one called Recommend. And part of what they're doing is using AI to help live agents assist other employees, former employees, all in support of assisting riders. And what it does today is they're using AI from PeopleRain to automate the process of identifying where there are gaps in the knowledge, so that now the live agents who take the calls from riders and from other employees always have real-time information at their disposal because AI is constantly monitoring for AI being used in the public sector comes from a long way away from Hong Kong, where they are using AI to allow citizens to detect and manage road repair issues. So everything from potholes, traffic lights being out, something that we've talked about in this space for a long time. The government of Hong Kong is a bit farther ahead than most municipalities and states and the federal government in the United States, but three good patterns, I think, that give you an example of how progressive IT leaders are thinking about delivering better citizen services. Now, we think more broadly about some of the opportunities to use AI to give employees an advantage at work. You can think about the whole kind of flywheel, everything across the life cycle of an employee from figuring out who we should hire, making sure that we onboard them effectively, making sure that they're never blocked from doing good work that they love doing from lack of access to technology or technology that's not working appropriately. We want to make sure that at important times, like in the United States, we're in the middle of open enrollment season. They know about what benefits are available to them, any questions they have about their payroll. Um, we want to make sure that nearly 100% of the time employees spend at work, it's spent doing the things that they're paid to do, that they love doing. Because every hour of friction that we can extract from work is another hour of productive time that helps employees really do more of what they love doing and what they were trained to do. Training and development, think about hyper personalized learning journeys for every employee. Um, Think about performance management. As a leader, wouldn't it be nice if you could come prepared to every one-on-one, armed with the benefit of everything that you should be discussing with your peers, with your team members, upskilling? There are many times in the life cycle of an employee, not just related to AI, but we want to make sure we keep our team skills sharp. These are all just examples of data challenges. And if we think, as progressive leaders do, about where's the data that has in it stored all the answers about how to deliver better experiences to employees, then we make all of these frictionless for employees and all the way up through to offboarding. We should be able to identify what assets an employee owns, make sure that for compliance reasons, we get those assets back, we deactivate accounts, we manage our exit interviews. These are all opportunities where there are very systematic patterns in the data. And by applying AI and machine learning at scale, like the three examples I shared in the previous slide, we can deliver exceptional employee experiences and get to that vision of 4 to 6 hours back of productive time per employee per week. And together as a community that cares about human-centric AI, we'll get to that target of impacting how the next billion employees get work done. One last success story before we turn it over to the real experts. I thought I'd trot this one out. I think this is very germane to the conversation that we're going to have with our expert panelists. This is an example, also a wonderful PeopleRank customer of how Netflix, a wonderful leader, that's Emily Feliciano Barreto, VP of IT at Netflix, how she approached using AI through PeopleRank from this context of there's too much friction that exists between employees and the work that those employees are trying to get done at Netflix so that we can watch more Squid Games. And what Emily said is, friction score today, it's this level. And, we're looking for an AI platform that could get it to that level. Her task was, can we cut it 50%? And what she identified before is that about 300,000 global users rely on internal employees and contractors rely on Netflix and Emily's team for technology services. There were high wait times, kind of typical stuff. Employees were consistently frustrated by the experience they were having. They weren't getting the same answers to the same question. They felt like resources weren't aligned. The right people never seemed to be available at the right times. They were using a combination of Slack and some Zendesk and various other systems, Workday, ServiceNow, to coordinate work. But there wasn't an AI control plane that really automated the management of all of these routine requests. Now that all changed. The friction score reduced well below 50% in the first 6 months. More than 750,000 requests are auto-routed and many are auto-resolved by PeopleRank annually. Uh, well on our way to achieving world-class service delivery. Now, since 2023, when Netflix has been using AI to automate employee service, the subscriber base at Netflix has grown almost 47 million subscribers. Can't say that's directly related to the AI initiatives, but you can certainly bet that it's in no small part due to employees feeling more engaged. They feel trusted, valued, respected at work, and it starts with visionary leadership, which is a perfect segue into today's conversation. I want to introduce you to two friends of mine who are going to educate us all about what's happening in the public sector, what progressive leaders are doing today. And first off, just for intros, I'm going to ask both Suma and Herman to introduce themselves and, importantly, share maybe an early success story that you're both proud of. Suma, let's start with you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for having me and Herman here. Really excited to be participating in this conversation. My name is Sumana Lapati. I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence and Information Officer at the City and County of Denver. Have been in IT for almost 30 years now, and a combination of public and private sectors. Um, my role into AI started because I was in the private sector when ChatGPT first came about, and we were the client zero for ChatGPT. We wanted to roll it out to our clients in the private sector. And when I joined back in the public sector, it just felt natural that we wanted to utilize this technology and see where it can help us with things that you mentioned, right? Better experience for our residents. They are demanding a lot more of us. So that's how my journey started in the AI world. So I've been with the city and county for now almost 2.5 years, and we have quite a number of things in production already. We first started with responsible use of AI policy with a cross-functional group of people from the business, the agencies, and that was the foundation. And then we started venturing into the actual large language models, ChatGPT type of APIs, and also our enterprise applications that you mentioned, quite a few. So it's a combination of both experimenting with startups and also leading with some enterprise use cases. We are using technology to do the heavy lifting so our people can focus on the heart of public service. And just a few examples, we've saved around $2.3 million just in 2025 using a combination of automation AI and 300 workflows that we were able to automate, resulting in 52,000 hours that we were able to give back into the service of our residents. So what we have is an award-winning CIO 100 award-winning platform that's integrated into our backend systems that converses in 53 different languages. It's called Sunny, and it sits on top of our Denver Gov website and 311, and it's able to get to more than 40% now of calls in 53 different languages and 24/7 access. Very proud of that work that went in, and that's in production. And same thing within our IT workflows. We're using bots to help us answer the questions that are repetitive and password resets, things like that. So that's in production, and quite a bit of agentic AI in our licensing and permitting workflows as well. So both internal IT facing as well as external. And at the heart of all of this, Dan, is we want transformational work done by our employees and transactional work done by bots. That's the theme.
Human first AI. Beautifully said, Suma. Thanks for joining. Herman, I've walked the halls with you.
Yes.
I know what a challenging job you have. Introduce yourself to the group.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. First, Mars, thank you, Samara. Yeah, that is so impressive what you guys have done there in Denver, and it's a little intimidating. Dan, you give me way too much credit in referring to me as an expert, as I feel we're at the beginning of our AI journey, as we're taking a very different approach to AI, which I'll get into in a second. But Herman Brown, I am the Chief Information Officer for the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. I've been with the DA's office for 10 years. I've been with the city and county of San Francisco almost 15 years now in a couple of months. Prior to that, a lot of private sector experience, active duty military. But 30 plus years of technology experience. And you asked the question is like, what was one of my success stories? One of I think the proudest moment for me has been working in the DA's office. I mean, there's nothing more fulfilling than being in an organization where we literally are, making a difference in every person's lives every day. A little bit about the DA's office is that, people think of the DA's office as we're like a pro bono law firm, right? It's like our attorneys, they do not get paid by the hour for their clients, because our clients are the constituents that we're looking to protect and make the city a safer place for them. But we also have other services outside of that, where we go out into the community. We talk to youth about crime prevention. A lot of crime is cyclical, that their fathers, mothers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, other family members have been criminals or have broken the law, and so they tend to follow in those footsteps, and we try to break that cycle. We also provide services to victims of crimes that range anything from medical assistance to relocation services, as well as financial services. So like an example, if you had a home invasion and your front door was kicked in and you didn't have the money to get your door repaired, we can offer services of that nature as well. So there's a lot we do. But we take what we do very seriously because it is a serious thing. So when it comes to AI, we have to be cautious about how we utilize that. So where I've been successful in the DA's office thus far has come from really helping get them from the Stone Age. When I first arrived at the DA's office, there was a lot of pen and paper processes. There's roughly 15 units that make up the DA's office. We had a case management system in which staff members, not everyone was using the case management. We had maybe 2 or 3 units out of those 15, 16 units that were actually utilizing the case management system. So we now have laptops for all end users. They have VPN so they can work remote. We now have a digital case management system that is modernized, that now allows us to get to that next level of law enforcement, which is now we're looking at AI and how these AI tools can assist us, because we've automated some of our business process, those main mundane repeated processes. But now we're taking it to the next step with AI. So just modernizing the DA's office has been kind of my feather in my cap, so to speak, what I'm most proud of. Still a lot of work to go, or a long ways to go, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
So the thing I love about both your stories is just how mission driven you both are when you approach what's the right thing to do next. I know a source of frustration is that every day you get requests from citizens, good use cases, ways that that technology and AI specifically could help, but you're in the unenviable position of having to say yes to a few, but no to a lot. Maybe Suma first, how do you evaluate demand for new AI initiatives, and what kind of criteria do you use to know when to say yes?
Being a technologist and also my background in nuclear physics, I always want to do innovative things. That makes me very excited coming into work every day, is how can we innovate? How can we make things better? However, there's only limited budgets, limited resources, and the city and county of Denver had a $200 million deficit last year. So there was a curb to my enthusiasm in a certain extent, because I wanted to go full steam ahead after winning that CIO 100 for Sunny. So the way we are looking at it then is, how do we prioritize the highest ROI use cases? And there's a demand for resources every single day from different agencies, right? And each agency that we support has its own priorities, and they feel that they have the highest ROI use cases, right? So how do you remove the emotion from those very crucial conversations and make it factual? So we have what's called a STIG, Strategic Technology Investment Group, that actually looks at the mayor's highest priorities and look at it from an enterprise lens. And that's hard, right? How do you prioritize picking up trash to serving the most vulnerable populations with food and other Medicaid benefits, to parks and rec, to fire hazards, right? How do you prioritize these very, very human things that people need from cities? So the STIG is one of the places where we start having those strategic conversations, thinking about the enterprise. So that's one. And we also created an innovation portal where people can submit ideas in crowdsourcing form, right, for the highest ROI use cases that they think will help and benefit our residents. And they get upvoted and downvoted based on, the content of the idea. It gives a lot of responsible framework for people to think about what's the most important from a resident lens, not what's important from an agency lens, right? It shifts the equilibrium to a certain extent. We also have a RICE matrix, which is, again, you can Google that, reach, impact, things like that. And we have like a formula that goes in for the highest ROI use cases. So it's a combination of things. The most important, I would say, is AI literacy. We are technical people. We understand large language models to a certain extent, drags and hallucinations, vector databases. But there are non-technical people that are using ChatGPT in their real life, and that's the only exposure maybe to things like AI, right? So what we are doing is increasing the literacy. We are relying on our vendor partner ecosystem to come in and explain more in depth the things that non-technical people need to consider when they're using AI. Do not put your large language models on the internet, right? Do not put privacy, HIPAA type of data on the internet. Think about data governance, data policies, data privacy, data security, the foundations, and think about then the use cases, right? So it's a responsible framework that will get us results, because AI is a very powerful tool, but it also requires a very powerful moral compass in my mind. So how do you balance this very powerful technology with enough guardrails? Because again, the recursions are happening so much faster in AI, even the industry is not able to keep up, right? So how do you ensure there's enough guardrails in place and that you're getting those nonlinear perspectives from non-technical people and others in the ecosystem? And we have task forces comprised of residents. So I would say, like, when we are thinking about all these things, it's a multifaceted approach. It's never about technology leading, it's always human in the loop. So that's how we are approaching some of these use cases. Again, the ROI frameworks may be adjusted to a little bit to AI. The traditional models that the CFOs are used to may need a little bit of tweaking, right? But work with your experts in the ROI field, right, on how do you get the actual ROI results. Because again, when there is this thing out in the community that AI is replacing jobs, the formula shifts a little bit, right? You have to go with cost savings and efficiencies and productivity in a different way than your traditional technologies, because there's that underlying fear, which again, people are rightfully so, right? Because this is a technology that we are all trying to understand ourselves. So, but at the same time, be fearless. Don't let fear ground you from moving, right? Make sure that you're asking all the right questions. Equip yourself with the right knowledge so that you can invest in those highest ROI use cases. One simple example, Sunny, our platform, AI-driven, can answer in 53 different languages. If I had to hire 53 different translators, that's such a human resource load to our systems. And is that the true place where we want to invest in just people, right? Because the technology can do it. So, and when you have people that are looking, most vulnerable people, they may be one paycheck away from being homeless. They would rather not call a call center because it's very embarrassing for them to pick up the phone and ask for aid. But they're able to enter that in the platform, and they're getting answers without them feeling embarrassed to ask for help. So I'm looking at it from that way. It's able to help people in their most vulnerable situations.
Brilliant answer. Thank you. Herman, same question to you. How do you manage inbound demand?
Well, it's a complex question for us is um, from a city and county perspective. The city and county is being very aggressive with the implementation of AI and wanting to leverage AI for some of the same services that they're looking to do in Denver and other cities across the country. But my role specifically as within the DA's office, we have to take a very ethical and methodical approach to the usage of AI because of what it is that we do. Um, as an example, that there were roughly 4 cases that I'm aware of across the U.S. where, an attorney used ChatGPT or an AI, you know, solution such as that to help with their closing argument or with their trial case, and got up in front of the judge and was giving their argument and reciting uh, case law, which ended up, the opposing counsel was like, I'm not familiar with that. The judge was like, neither am I familiar with that. And long story short, come to find out that the AI model that he used had actually hallucinated that trial case. Well, now that person is, going in front of the board, to the bar association, to justify why they need to keep their bar card because they didn't do their due diligence and fact checking, the solution. So, with that in mind, from the DA's office perspective, we have to be very methodical, very ethical in it. So what happens is today when there is an AI solution or tool that someone is interested in using, they submit a ticket to the IT support services team. We take a look at that request, kind of see how does this fit into our overall business strategy and plan? Does this create any risk? Are there any additional things that we need to do in preparation for utilizing this AI model? So one of the things that we've had to go back and do is actually come out with I hate to use the word policy, but I'll say policy, and that there was no AI to be used within our organization. And the reason we did that was because we wanted to take the time. I wanted to take the time to let's come up with governance. What is acceptable uses of AI, as Samara has mentioned, right? Is we don't want intellectual property, we don't want personal information put out there or any other sensitive type of data. We deal with criminal law, intelligent communications, or CJIS, criminal justice information. That some of that is very sensitive information and is not allowed to be out on the internet. And there's a lot of regulations and compliance, requirements around that data. So we need to ensure that our staff members are not putting that type of data out into the internet. So we came up with our governance policy. And then we started looking at, okay, well, now and looking at utilizing these AI tools, we have a governance policy and guidelines and what's acceptable use. Now, what about our data? Is our data structured properly? Is our data clean? Is our data standardized? It's the last thing we want is to build an LLM model and or start utilizing AI, and then we find out that our data is bad, right? And so we're spitting out, incorrect information based upon our own data because it's incorrect. So we're now in that third phase where we're now accepting input from staff members, and looking at, okay, this is an acceptable use of AI. Now let's move forward with trying to get the funding for it if that's required, and looking at timelines and what it would take to implement it and doing testing of those solutions. So in the nutshell, that's kind of the process and where we're at now, right? Is that all that information comes to IT, and I won't say the decision makers, but we're evaluating to ensure the security of the systems, and that is of benefit to the
Yeah.
DA's office and meeting our business objective and goals.
Similar use cases, but two very different journeys. Suma, what are some of the challenges that you face, regulatory or otherwise, that maybe your private sector counterparts maybe don't experience? Herman, if you're off mute, you can go first. Suma's hunting around to get off mute.
I think one of the challenges that we have as being in government is that budget restrictions, and as Sumar mentioned earlier about how, the city of Denver had a $2 million deficit last year. The city and county of San Francisco, we had an $8 million deficit last year. We're expecting to have another deficit year this year. And so one, coming up with money to invest in AI can be difficult, but also um, how calculating the return of investment when you're a private sector company and you're for profit and you start looking at, well, hey, AI, the implementation of this AI tool can benefit me by increasing my sales or faster time to market, any of those things, you can come up with an ROI. But when you're providing services to constituents, there is that may not be paying for those services. In a lot of cases, they're not paying for those services. How do you calculate a return of investment? It's I'm investing in this solution and this tool to, yes, it may create efficiencies, but there's no real cost savings, right? It's just an investment, but to be able to provide better services to our constituents, and that's what the constituents expect. They expect better service, they expect easy service, and they expect no matter where they are to be able to receive service. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges is the return of investment and how you calculate that when it comes to AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Suma,
Yeah,
same
sorry about
question.
that, Dan. My mute just disappeared from the screen. That was crazy. But I would echo what Herman said, right? When you have such a big deficit, and the argument from the city council and leaders like that, the oversight committees, is when you have hungry, homeless people on the streets, how can you come to us and ask for an investment in technology, right? And that's a very powerful question, and again, that needs very thoughtful answers. And the way we approached it is, again, it's going to help those most vulnerable with more directed, insightful information so we can help them where they are rather than it's taking away something from them, right? It's truly to help those people that we are doing this. And also the regulatory compliance frameworks haven't evolved with how fast AI is evolving, right? So there's all these basic questions that need to be answered in terms of the responsible use of AI. So there's a gap that we need to fulfill. And so that's been one of the challenges as well. How do you ensure that you are looking at all the, the CJIS, the HIPAA, the other types of frameworks, security, privacy concerns from residents? How is my data being used? Again, the way I look at it is, ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions, because the more questions people ask, the better the AI solutions will be, because they may not be thinking of all the different permutations and combinations of AI. So that human in the loop is extremely critical, and asking the right questions and putting guardrails, putting the right frameworks in place is very important for the success of any organization's AI journey.
Thank you. Herman, we're really only a few years into this kind of global experiment with AI first initiatives in the world of IT, but already we're starting to get a sense that every project, of course, will have an AI component, and it's kind of redefining what it means to be a tech leader. What in your experience is the difference between kind of call it a pre-AI initiative versus an initiative that involves some kind of, call it kind of a nerdy term, but non-deterministic outcomes versus deterministic outcomes in previous IT projects?
Well, I think that the difference now is when we're talking about AI is looking at the security around that tool. Where is this a third-party AI based solution versus an in-house AI solution? Does this solution integrate with other systems? How are those systems integrated? And then thinking about security on who's going to be responsible for patching that AI tool and solution. Does it create a vulnerability from a security standpoint because now this AI tool, model, application, whatever it may be, is integrated into your day-to-day operations, that it may be bypassing some of your security tools and monitors and sensors. And so that's something that we have to look at from an IT perspective. All right. So we're taking a very close look, and we have what we call our 22J process, which is to look at all those different things. The vendor, how long have they been in business? Um, what LLMs are they using? Is it private? Is it public? Is it, what do they do with the data? So we're trying to do all that back end work to find out as much about these solutions as possible, which, slows us to getting to market. And as technology comes out and the workforce changes, I know, especially for me within the DA's office, is we've gone from where I've had what I refer to as legacy employees that have been with the organization we had one attorney that had been with the office for 35 years, and so their mindset and expectations of technology are very different than someone who's just coming right out of law school, right? And so trying to balance that is also a very difficult thing for us to try to manage and do. So, but security becomes very important. I think that's essentially the response
Yeah.
to that question.
Good. Suma, same to you, navigating the challenges of AI first initiatives.
I would say again, think about cybersecurity that Herman mentioned, right? We are still in a very defensive mode with CIOs, CISOs in terms of cyber. But there are people, hackers, that are using AI and creating so many polymorphic models that our traditional tools can't even keep up, right? How do you ensure that your cybersecurity posture can deal with what's happening within a hacker's world, and they are using AI indiscriminately without any of these guardrails we talked about, right? So that's the world we are dealing with. So we can say, hey, ban AI, let's not use it, let's wait, do all that. But the rest of the world, the rest of the countries are going full steam ahead, right? If you look at the countries like China, Russia, and other countries, they're using it full on, and they're so much more advanced than us. And in this country, right, rightfully so, we have more guardrails, more frameworks in place to protect residents, to protect people. And that gap is actually going to be it's going to widen, first of all, if we don't catch up. And so these are the kinds of things that I think we are dealing with as CIOs and CISOs, is how do we ensure that we are keeping up with the rest of the world, and these hacker type of institutions and nation threat actors that are using AI indiscriminately. So I would say that's one of the challenges. And how do you ensure that your workforce, you talked about workforce, Dan, is able to keep up with all of those? Because again, Herman mentioned legacy workers, and they have the domain knowledge, right? But how do you take that domain knowledge and ensure that they're being trained in AI so they can come to the table with asking the right questions and not fear AI? The trains left the station, right? So how do we ensure that we can keep up with what's happening around us in a very responsible, guardrail-driven way?
And Suma, that's a perfect segue into we get time for one last question, then I want to leave a few minutes in case the group has questions as well. So you got a lot of peers who are listening in, and would love to know when inevitably, there are going to be stakeholders who are going to push back, whether it's, fears of job loss due to, AI-driven automation, that's probably top of the list, but, lots of very reasonable concerns that might lead others to feel like, you want to put more pedal on, apply more to the brake than the gas right now. And yet, you're in a position where, you're guiding toward a future and tasked with innovation. What kind of conversations have you had with stakeholders who are maybe less progressive, and how do you acknowledge those valid concerns while still, promoting an innovation agenda? Maybe Suma, you want to go first, and then Herman?
Yeah. Being able to be very transparent in those conversations on what AI is, what it can do, what it cannot do, where humans stay in control. Separating AI into those chunks of understandable pieces. AI, big AI, feels scary, right? It's like a big unknown to a lot of people. So I think helping break down those pieces on what it can do, where you still are in charge and you still are responsible, helps alleviate some of the anxiety. And the anxiety is real, right? So that helps a lot. And it's okay for people to question it. Why should I get defensive about AI, right? Any system or any technology or any solution that impacts people's life should be scrutinized. It's important to ask those questions, right? And letting people have that freedom. So saying, forcing AI on people, being open about that it's not a flawless system, but we also have to keep up with what's going on around the world. To the previous question, I would say nothing kills trust faster than pretending AI is completely flawless. Because again, there is bias in our models, right? Because it's humans that are creating models, and my bias is going to seep into my training data. It has high hallucination ratios. It's getting better every single day. Oh, absolutely. Over reliance on just the technology. So all these are important considerations, and when we go in with that kind of a mindset and not just be defending AI at every juncture, I think that opens up a very open conversation with the skeptics, if you will. I think, again, when people see that we are not trying to hide the limitations and the downsides, trust will increase. It's not going to be like straightforward, but it's going to increase. I think AI is an advisor, but it's us humans that decide what's going to happen. AI is a suggestion tool, but we as humans are approving it, right? We talked about Workday with PeopleRain and stuff. And if you're seeing that in your systems, it's like recruiting, for example, it's giving only a certain kind of a resume, with not diversity coming out. You should question that. Is that because the algorithm was fed a certain piece of data that doesn't support diversity, right? That's the question mark. Don't just rely on the system, ask the question. Again, when responsibility doesn't feel abstract or untraceable, right? That's why algorithmic explainability, the source data, transparency, where is this models coming from? Can you explain the data behind it? Then AI becomes less scary. Concrete examples, right? And showing where maybe AI made the wrong decisions. So all of this is very important. And again, pilot programs where you have the opt-in and opt-out, giving that sense of control to a little bit is very, very important. AI is not a replacement, right? Jobs will change, jobs will be different, jobs won't be the same. And being able to acknowledge that it's not going to replace all jobs, because again, jobs that require empathy, understanding, judgment, the humanness of people, those jobs will never be replaced in my mind. What AI will actually do is, again, that repetitive, high volume, low judgment, mundane tasks will be different. Empathy, creativity, accountability, judgment, those are all things that build over time. And those are things that humans are good at. Humans have a lot of flaws, but I think our humanness is going to not go away in spite of all the challenges. Consistency is very important. I would say you don't have to trust AI completely blindly, but build systems that are designed to be questioned.
Suma, that's a brilliant answer. And Herman, you have the very unenviable task of following that up. Anything that you care to add to what Suma shared?
Yeah, in the infamous words of Uncle Jim, for any of you Spider-Man fans out there, right, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that that's very true anytime we talk about technology, right? There's always been a fear of technology, whether it's AI or the cloud, the internet, and rightfully so, right? It's the fear of the unknown. And for non-technologists, it can be hard for them to conceive what this means to them, how this is going to impact them. And a lot of people outside of technology are afraid of AI and AI replacing them. But to Suma's point is that AI is a tool that is to enhance people's ability to do their job, not to necessarily replace them. Even though, yes, there will be some jobs that will be replaced and has been replaced through the use of AI, but no different than the automotive industry with automation or manufacturing, right? Yes, there were some people that was displaced, but automation did not replace the entire workforce for, manufacturing. And so for us, it's trying to find what is that right balance. And so having those very open and honest conversations about how AI and any other technology is going to impact the workforce, the organization, our global economy, and just as us as humans and individuals is very important. And I think we're 30, 40 years away from any true AI. Like I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because, I question, some of the, and I use air quotes, AI that, organizations or businesses throw out there. Because we talked about automation earlier, talked about, automating workflows. Someone talked about automating workflows within the organization. Well, automation has been around for years. Bots have been around for years. And so now, manufacturers, the media are putting, oh, this is an AI bot. This is AI automation. Well, it really is no different than what it has been. It's just kind of now a marketing tool because there's this fear that if we're not leveraging AI, our organizations are going to fall behind. We're not going to be able to get to market. We're not going to be able to compete. And so we as technologists have to also look at that and make sure that we're having that honest and open discussion also with the decision makers in the business to let them understand that, yes, this tool is a helpful tool, but this is not necessarily an AI-centric tool. It's an automated tool that's enhanced with AI. Maybe it's a play on words or kind of a spin to it, but technologists have to understand. I had a conversation yesterday with a peer and that works for another department, and he was telling me about how he was having an issue with his finance officer. And, and I told him, I said, well, when you're starting to have these technology conversations, you have to break the language down to something that they can understand. And I said, we were talking about routers and gateways. I said, use the analogy of a post office, right? You have a zip code which is the equivalent to your IP address and the gateway, right? And, and then when I explained it, he's like, wow, I never thought about that. I said, because that's the issue that you're having with your leadership and your CFOs. They don't understand what you're saying. When you start talking, bits and zeros and ones, it's over their head. And I had to learn that, throughout my career. And there's various levels of understanding of technology. I'm a storyteller, so I love telling stories. I had this managing attorney who was on our executive team. She was a chief. And I'd come to the meetings and they're like, oh, Harmon, what's going on in technology? And I was like, oh, we just rolled out these new laptops, and she'd do like this to me. And which meant it was over her head. And I was like, okay, a laptop is, and I'd have to break it down so that she could understand what that meant when I said, laptop. And I'm being facetious when I say laptop. She knew what it was, but she barely knew where the power button was. And she'd tell you that herself. But because she was old school and she grew up, doing her legal briefs with pen and paper, right? So using a laptop was foreign to her. So it's having an honest conversation and understanding what the technology can do for you and how it's going to benefit you and making sure you align with the business and the business understands.
Brilliant insights to both of you.
Just one thing, Dan.
Yeah.
We did our first AI summit 2 years back, because we wanted public sector taking charge, if you will, on how AI is going to be done. So at that time, literally 2 years back, we had leaders like Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, year one, right? And they were talking about the potential, the limitless possibilities of AI, and how it's helping this clinical trials, and wars are now being shaped by AI and stuff, and it's happening. But here too, we actually had a Buddhist monk come and present on the ethics and value of AI, and that was quite interesting, right? And he actually leads the MIT Center of Excellence, and his perspectives from being a Buddhist monk and how he is looking at AI, that juxtaposition was very interesting, right? So bringing those nonlinear perspectives is so important. Don't just listen to the technologists, right? Listen to that, but also buffer that with the other types of perspectives that will help us shape responsible AI.
Thank you for sharing that, Suma. I've certainly been inspired by the progress you've made through a combination of public-private partnerships. Really great example for all cities. Um, I got to get us to a stopping point, but when me and members of the Rain Train, that's what we call ourselves at People Rain, were preparing for today's discussion, we wanted to leave you with one actionable takeaway and offer some free resources. So if you scan that QR code, you'll get a bundle of resources, training materials, certification videos, and something that we call Taking the Pledge. And something that as I meet leadership teams all over the world, I encourage every organization to ask every employee to take this one simple pledge. And it goes like this. I will openly and enthusiastically share how and when my work product was augmented or enhanced by AI. It's very simple. You can fit it like on one index card, but it has profound impacts on a culture. So as you're looking for ways to introduce some of the principles that have led to the success that Suma's had, that Herman's had, that some of the early leaders in the success stories I mentioned have had, it all starts with something simple like this. And you'll find what it does, it transforms the culture because it invites everyone to share openly and enthusiastically some of the questions and some of the experimentation that otherwise might lead to what we call shadow AI. We used to be familiar with shadow IT. Well, now there's shadow AI. Celebrate innovation. And a good way to start is by creating these serendipitous opportunities for employees to share how they're innovating and know that leaders, as well as frontline employees, everyone, including every citizen, is answering this. They're asking the same questions. It's okay to be vulnerable as a leader. And it starts by encouraging this dialogue about the future of work and encouraging us to think beyond some of the fears and some of the headlines. So take the pledge, scan the QR code, join us on the journey. I know that there were questions that we didn't have a chance to get to. And to the panelists, there were so many topics that we had prepared that we didn't have time to discuss. This may need to be a recurring series, and to everyone whose question we didn't get a chance to answer, we will. We'll make a point of following up with you offline. We have them all recorded. But it is our commitment to make sure we get you out of here on time. I would just say thank you to the panelists, Suma and Herman. You over-delivered. Appreciate our friendship and our partnership, and just thank you on behalf of Team Human. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Good. That QR code goes to more than 400 conversations recorded on AI and the future of work, a weekly podcast I host. We have a community of about 1 million listeners. We call ourselves members of Team Human, so join us there. And most important, I hope you took some source of inspiration away from the comments from Suma and Herman. We're all in this together. Let's change the world. Let's do it together. And just envision a world where AI is used to improve humanity. Thanks for joining us today. And we'll be back soon with another episode of Lessons from Leaders.